Oh. Hare Krishna. Wow. Many snails. Hare Krishna. Big snail. Om Ajnanatimramnasya Gnanayana Salakaya Sakshurmilitanyena Tasma Sri Gurave Namaha. Vanchakapatarubhyascha Kripasindubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Reading from Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat by Srila Vrindavan Thakur, Adikanda chapter 12, Nimai wanders throughout Navadvip. Sachi Mata was fortunate to see Nimai's endless display of supernatural phenomena. Some nights she heard many people singing, dancing and playing instruments as if some festival were in progress. She sometimes noticed the entire house, doors, walls and windows emanating a brilliant light. On some days, she saw divinely beautiful ladies, as attractive as Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune, roaming about with lotus flowers in their hands. Occasionally, she saw effulgent demigods who would appear and disappear within a moment. Sachimata's visions were certainly not imagination. She was the embodiment of devotional service to the Supreme Lord Krishna, and all the Vedas glorify her. Merely her glance upon any person could purify and bestow the qualification to see the same transcendental visions. Sri Gaurasundar, the Supreme Lord, who is Krishna himself, lived incognito in Navadvip, simply relishing his own divine self. Sometimes he revealed his esoteric identity, but none of his eternal servants could recognize him. In his Navadvip pastimes, the Lord liked to be very arrogant. In fact, no one could match his arrogance. Whenever the Supreme Lord performs any pastime, his activities cannot be equaled by anyone. When the Lord feels like performing his chivalrous pastimes, then there is no one to challenge his mastery over weapons. When he wants to reveal his amorous pastimes, then he captivates the hearts of millions of beautiful damsels. When he wants to enjoy opulence, then his opulence and magnificence is unmatched. Now, in his pastimes as an erudite scholar, there is no one to match his audacious pride of knowledge. And when this same Lord will later accept the renounced order of life, then who will excel him in devotion, humility, and renunciation? Is there anyone in the three worlds to match him? In all his incarnations and pastimes, the Lord is supreme in all respects, yet, most wonderfully, his very nature is to become subordinate to the transcendental love of his pure, unalloyed devotees. One day the Lord was walking down the thoroughfare in Navadvip, surrounded by a number of his student disciples. His movement, dress, and behavior were that of a king, and he wore a golden yellow dhoti exactly like Krishna. A face that appeared to reflect 1,000,000 rising full moons had soft red lips. People would look and say, "Is he Cupid in person?" His exquisite forehead held a tilak mark. His hands clutched his books, and as soon as anyone beheld his lotus petal eyes, they were freed of all sinful thoughts and reactions. The Lord had a restless nature. As he walked along with his students, he swung his arms in a carefree manner. Srivas Pandit also happened to be walking along this road, and as soon as he saw the Lord, he immediately felt great happiness. The Lord offered his obeisances to Srivas Pandit as soon as he saw him. Srivas Pandit, the magnanimous personality, blessed the Lord, saying, "May you live a long life." Then with a laugh he inquired, "Where are you off to now? My dear epitome of vanity, what futile work are you wasting your time upon instead of worshipping the Supreme Lord Krishna? Why do you spend days and nights teaching people non-stop? Why do you not allow people in to educate themselves so that they can get knowledge about Lord Krishna and the process of devotional service? What is the use of education and knowledge if devotional service is not the ultimate goal? From now on, do not waste even a single moment in futile activities. You have become educated. Now utilize your time in worshipping Lord Krishna." "O respected Pandit," replied Nimai, "I am sure that by your grace, devotional service to Krishna is possible even for me." Graciously the Lord took leave of Srivas Pandit and went to the bank of the Ganges. The Lord's beauty was indescribable as he sat in the midst of his students. One might say he looked like the moon surrounded by a starry firmament. However, that analogy is inaccurate, for the moon is not without flaw. Its waxing and waning diminish its glory, whereas the accelerating beauty of the Lord was continuous. Therefore, such a comparison is inaccurate in describing the Lord's beauty. To compare him with Brihaspati is also inadequate, for Brihaspati is the spiritual master of only the demigods, whereas the Supreme Lord Gaurachandra is the supreme shelter and preceptor of all living entities. To compare him with Cupid is also incorrect, for remembrance of Cupid gives rise to material desire and ultimately to grief within the heart, whereas remembrance of the Lord brings purification and freedom from material bondage, through which one enjoys blissful eternal life. It seems that all analogies are inappropriate except the one which is readily accepted by my heart. On the banks of the Jamuna, Sri Nanda Kumar Krishna sat surrounded by his young coward boyfriends. That same Krishna Chandra and the same coward boys were now sitting on the banks of the river Ganga. Whoever beheld the charming face of Sri Gaurasundar seated by the Ganga experienced inexplicable ecstasy. The Lord's pure, effulgent form inspired many opinions from the people who were present there. One person said, "Such a brilliant effulgence is impossible for a human being." Another conjectured, "This Brahmana must be a part or an expansion of Lord Vishnu. He has come to fulfill the prophecy that the Brahmana would be the king of Bengal. I can see all the marks of royalty upon his body," said another. People continued to give their opinions as far as their intelligence would allow. Thus Nimai, the cynosure of the residents of Navadvip, sat among his students, criticizing and minimizing the other teachers of Nadia. He would thoroughly defeat any arguments on any subject, and then, by his superior intelligence, he would again establish the same arguments that he had just defeated. "I will accept that person as a scholar who has the courage to come and argue with me," challenged Nimai. "Who has sufficient intelligence to defeat my arguments?" In this way the Supreme Lord challenged and thus destroyed the false ego of the scholars of Navadvip. The Lord had a countless following of students. People would simply come and offer themselves to the Lord. Every day many young Brahmana boys would come and pray at the lotus feet of the Lord. "O great scholar, I want to study under you so that I may learn something. Please be gracious and grant me this wish." The Lord would smile and accept them all, and in this way his students increased day by day. The most precious gem of the Vaikuntha planets sat amongst his students on the bank of the river Ganga, revealing his wonderful and pleasurable pastimes. Jai Susi Guru Gauranga Sundar Radha Giridhari Juki Jai. The pious people could all see the Lord, and everyone in Navadvip could feel his spiritual potency. There was no way to gauge the amount of good fortune that these people accumulated and the bliss they experienced just by seeing the Lord. One would become free from material bondage simply by seeing the fortunate souls whose hearts had been touched by the blissful existence of the Supreme Lord. However, alas for me, I have taken a sinful and wretched birth. I could not be born at that time. My life is bereft of the beautiful transcendental sight of Lord Gaurasundar. In spite of all this, O Sri Gaurachandra, please grant me the mercy that I may remember these pastimes of yours in every birth. Wherever you and my Lord Nityananda perform your transcendental pastimes with your eternal associates, may I also be present there as your humble and insignificant servant. Lord Sri Krishna Chaitanya and Nityananda Prabhu are my life and soul. Their insignificant servant Vrindavan Das offers his humble song at their lotus feet. Adikanda chapter 13. 3 Nimai defeats the Digvijaya. All glories to Lord Gaurachandra, the brightest lamp of the Brahmana race. All glories to the Lord, who inspires the deepest feelings of ecstasy in the hearts of all his devotees. Excuse me. All glories to the Lord and Master of Govinda Das, the doorkeeper. Please shower your merciful glance on the conditioned living entities. All glories to the Emperor of the Brahmanas and the crest jewel amongst all teachers. All glories to the society of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's devotees. The Lord of Vaikuntha, Nimai, was immersed in the mellow of the audacious, proud scholar. In those days, Navadvip town itself was an institution, housing many scholars and teachers well versed in all branches of the scriptures. Titles like Bhattacharya, Chakravarti, Mishra, and Acharya were common, and the only work of these scholars was teaching. Their sport was debate, and in their intolerant and impatient ways they did whatever was required to win an argument. Even if a well-respected superior scholar made valuable points, others would disagree with him. Lord Nimai's habit was to constantly rebuke the other scholars and refute their arguments. Right in front of them, there was no teacher in Navadvip who could confront the Lord's arguments and offer a second opinion. As soon as they saw the Lord, such fear gripped their hearts, and they immediately became obsequious. Whoever conversed with the Lord, even by chance, became his dedicated follower. Everyone knew of the Lord's erudition and intellect from his early childhood. Within their hearts, they also knew that Lord Nimai could never be defeated by anyone. The mere sight of the Lord created a feeling of awe and respect amongst the scholars, so they naturally became submissive in his presence. Yet his illusory energy prevented anyone from knowing him in truth. Only when the Lord reveals himself of his own volition can one understand his real identity. Although the Supreme Lord is most magnificent in every respect, it is entirely by his personal desire that one is able to perceive his confidential, transcendental pastimes. In Navadvip, Lord Gaurachandra performed his transcendental pastimes in the mood of a scholar, deluding everyone about his esoteric identity. Once a very learned but supercilious scholar holding the title Digvijaya, meaning one who has conquered scholars in all directions, came to Navadvip. He was a dedicated devotee of the goddess of learning, Saraswati, and he had received her blessing by chanting her proprietary mantra. Mother Saraswati is actually the universal mother. She is none different from Lakshmi Devi, the eternal consort of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Sri Narayan. Lakshmi Devi is the embodiment of transcendental loving devotional service to the Supreme Lord. She is the internal potency of the Lord and is always situated upon his chest. By his desire and good fortune, the Brahmana had received a benediction from Mother Saraswati to become a Digvijaya scholar. For her to give such a boon was effortless, for she is capable of bestowing even the rarest gift of transcendental devotional service to the Supreme Lord, Sri Narayan. Having received this benediction directly from Goddess Saraswati, the Brahmana proceeded to travel throughout the land, conquering scholars wherever he went. All the scriptures were on the tip of his tongue. No one in the world could challenge him. Many could not even follow the introduction to his main dissertations, so he went unchecked and unchallenged everywhere. When Navadvip's fame as the center for great scholars reached his ears, He went there with great pomp and ceremony, leading a procession of elephants, horses and men. News spread like wildfire in every house of Navadvip, creating waves of confusion. The word spread. After conquering the scholars of every land, the Digvijaya has at last come to Navadvip. The teachers of Navadvip were further alarmed when they heard that he was a direct recipient of a boon from the goddess Saraswati. Worriedly, they spoke amongst themselves. Navadvip is the most famous center of learning in the entire world. If the Digvijaya were to defeat our scholars, then Navadvip's glory will be minimized and the world will hear of our failure. Yet no one has the courage to challenge him, for he is the recipient of Mother Saraswati's special benediction. It is said that Mother Saraswati herself appears upon his tongue whenever he speaks. How can a mere human defeat him? The hundreds of Bhattacharya scholars residing in Navadvip were distraught with anxiety and abandoned all activities. Navadvip bustled with excitement as the time for the trial of intellectual strength drew near. His students described all this in detail to Sri Gauranga. After conquering all other parts of the world, a Digvijaya Pandit has come to Navadvip to challenge our scholars in debate. It is said that he has received the special favor of the goddess of Saraswati. He has entered Navadvip in a great procession of horses, elephants, palanquins and men. He says that if there are no challengers amongst the Navadvip scholars, he wants a letter of victory issued on his behalf. Lord Gaurachandra heard his students and then with a smile reminded them about the nature of the Absolute. Listen, brothers, and I will tell you the actual situation. The Supreme Lord does not tolerate anyone who indulges in continual insolence. Whenever he finds someone burdened by arrogance over some personal quality, he invariably removes the cause of his or her pride. A fruit-laden tree and a person endowed with good qualities will inevitably bend down in humility. You must have heard of other great conquerors like Haihaya, Nahusha, Vena, Bana, Naraka, Ravana, etc. Did the Supreme Lord neglect to prune their overbearing pride? He never tolerates such ignominious insolence. Here in Navadvip you will witness the end of this supercilious scholar. The Lord amused himself with his students in this way. In the evening he went to the bank of the river Ganga, sprinkled some Ganga water upon his head, offered his obeisances, and then sat in the midst of his students. The Lord lectured on various subjects, such as religion and its different scriptural explanations. No one, however, understood that the Lord was simultaneously thinking of the manner in which he could defeat the Digvijaya Pandit. Okay, I stop here for today. Jai Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat Adikanda chapter 13. Sri Nimai defeats the Digvijaya. Jai Srila Vrindavan Das Thakur ki Jai. Jai Sriman Sarva Bhavana Das ki Jai. Jai Srila Gurudev. Hari Haraya Nama Krishna Yadavaya Namaha Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namaha Gopal Govinda Ram Sri Madhusudan Giridhari Gopinath Madana Mohan Sri Chaitanya Nityananda Sri Advaita Chanda Gadadara Srivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Rupa Sanatana Bhakta Rakuna Sri Jiva Gopala Bhakta Dasa Rakuna Jai Kusai Jai Kusai Kori Chalana Banana Jai Vignana Sabisapura Jai Kusai Jai Muitalada Samsavara Padare Mumura Panchakra Tamdira Charana Sevi Bhakta Samebas Janane Moro Abhilas Jai Kosai Jabe Braja Kolabas Radha Krishna Nitya Lila Korila Prakas Anande Balari Bhaja Vrindavan Sri Guru Vaishnava Pare Majai Aman Sri Guru Vaishnava Padma Koriya Hari Nam Sankirtana Kore Narottama Das Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare Nitya Gaura Haribo Haribo Nitya Gaura Haribo Nitya Gaura Haribo Haribo Nitya Gaura Haribo Haribo Nitya Gaura Haribo Nitya Gaura Haribo Jaya Sabai Kasi Si Guru Kuranga Sundar Radha Giridhara Ki Jai Jai Om Vishnu Pad Sila Bhakti Nimalacharya Maharaj Ki Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Sai Samad Sri Acharya Vrinda Ki Jai Om Vishnu Pad Sila Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Om Vishnu Pad Sila Bhakti Rakak Sita Dev Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Bhagavan Sila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai Sri Rupa Nuga Guruvaka Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Sabashara Sri Nityananda Prabhu Ki Jai Sabashara Sri Mahaprabhu Ki Jai Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shamakunda Radha Kunda Kiri Govardhan Ki Jai Tulasi Maharani Ki Jai Ganga Yamuni Jiu Ki Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat Ki Jai Sri Navadvip Dham Ki Jai, Sri Mayapur Dham Ki Jai, Sri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Sri Purushottama Dham Ki Jai, Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Ju Ki Jai, Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Mat Ki Jai, Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Mat East London Chapter Ki Jai, Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Mat West London Chapter Ki Jai, Samadvaita Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Samadvaita Vaishnava Mandala Ki Jai, Hari Nam Sankirtan Ki Jai, Nitai Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol.